or
It's
something. I don't
it's
know.
not. It may be something like that. So you would just take just calculate how many minutes are in a day, and it would be that. It'd be that. So it'd be one
Yeah.
revolution per that many minutes. So 24 times 60. There you go. That's how many minutes it takes to do one revolution.
I wonder how he feels about 24-hour analog clocks, because I've actually seen a couple.
Yeah, as Daryl Frost says, it's one revolution per day.
Yeah.
So it'd be 24 or times 60. That'd be one revolution per that many minutes. So, anyways, let's continue on.
I'm not putting words in his mouth, okay? Now watch. The reason there is no tilt, okay? Polaris would be directly above the North Pole of this pair, right? Doesn't matter how far away it is. Polaris is directly above the North Pole of this pair. Now, not only Polaris doesn't tilt, but Orion, the constellations, the fixed stars do not tilt. Now, this is the third mandatory condition.
This is pretty dumb too. Like, what does it matter? Yeah, it's still over the North Pole, whether it's tilted or not. Like, I don't know what that means. It's like he thinks the North Star is like north of the sun or something. Like, no, it's north of the Earth that's tilted. Like, he doesn't even understand that. Like,
yeah, roughly, it's perpendicular straight up and away from the North Pole. Roughly, it does wobble. The North Pole does wobble and all that, and it's not, always in the exact same. Yeah, because of the shifting of the Earth as it turns. But like, even then, like, it's not locked in space above the North Pole. Like there's a string or a stick or whatever connecting them together. Like, his argument doesn't hold water. I don't understand why he's trying to like lock it into one place and then say that it's our problem and we have to fix it or figure it out.
It's still above the North Pole. It doesn't matter. We're just saying that thing moves. Like, it's always pointing towards the well, it's not always pointing towards Polaris, as he pointed out. It changes a little bit every year or every 1,000 years. And Nathan got that wrong too, how fast it moves. Like, he was saying 7 degrees every 500
like the
years.
Tiniest misalignment, right? Since we've been observing it, at least, like we've seen just like very like it has to be very accurately and scientifically measured, because like with your naked eye, you're not really going to notice it.
So I looked it up. It's 1/40th of the diameter of the full moon every 1,000 years.
Didn't you get the real explanation? There was a perfect explanation for all this. This is a satanic movement. Didn't you get that?
Yeah, we went through that part already.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best part. That was right at the end. So I just loved it.
Oh, he closed out with that. He started that with his opening, so it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he just went over that.
Like, who cares?
Yeah, so
I'm like, why do you care about Polaris when your whole focus is it's a satanic movement? Why do you need to explain anything else? You have the explanation right there. It's the King of Darkness, right? He's the one who caused this.
Well, they're trying to demystify people to the truth, like to pull the cloth away from their eyes, to show them they've been deceived, to show them that Satan's a deceiver.
But then why do you need to explain it with this scientific language? That's the thing to me. It's like very duplicitous. It's like you're using all this fancy schmancy scientific language, but in reality, you're not interested in science. And at the end of the day, the ultimate issue is it's satanic. So I'm like, why talk about Polaris? Why talk about any of this stuff?
I explained why. It's because they believe that science is the tool of Satan to hide the truth from mankind. So they have to demonstrate that science is in cahoots with Satan, hiding the shape of the earth.
But they're using science, though. That's my problem. I'm like, then why are you using scientific language?
They're not using science. They're using language.
No,
they aren't. They're not even using the language correctly.
I'm not saying that they're using it correctly. I'm saying they're using this language. So I'm like, why even? My question is, why engage this arena if it's all fraudulent, if it's all, to say, satanic element and satanic movement? Why engage it at all? Just be honest and use Christian language. We don't need any of this other.
How can you
I get what you're saying. Like,
how do you use?
I get what you're saying.
Can you give an example of how you can use Christian language to demonstrate that Satan is hiding the shape of the earth from people?
Sure. Let's say I was going to take that position, I'd be like, look, they're using this language of the atheist scientists. The atheist scientists are the agents of Satan. What they're trying to do is hide God's real image. They're trying to hide God's image. They're using this language. I won't use their language where they talk about diameter and Gauss's law and Coriolis effect. These are all lies from the pits of hell. You shouldn't believe any of it.
Right.
Because the truth is we have the gospels of our Lord Jesus Christ. He will teach us and give us the true knowledge. So let's throw away all this fake language. These are made by human beings who are following the Antichrist. See, that's what I would do if I were arguing it.
Yeah, that'd be a better argument, though, too. I try to get them to argue that sometimes. They refuse to, they refuse to explain why they believe what they believe. They say it's like obvious or it's a common sense or a lot of times it's really rooted into these type of other beliefs. Not in all cases, but in this guy's case.
You could probably slip in to some flurf circles with all that talk right there, and get some of them to stop engaging in the science talk if you just poison the well with that a little bit. just kind of drop the seeds here and there, and they'll be like, oh, he's so woke, he's broken it, he's cracked the matrix.
Well, Dustin Nemos try to argue like that too, but then it should be a religious debate, don't pretend like it's a science debate.
And that's my problem. It's why are we hiding in this language? The thing is, why are we talking about exactly the thing where we talk about Eratosthenes? Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about electromagnetic effect or electrostatic stuff? Why are we talking about this stuff when it's not even relevant? That's not actually what you believe. What you really believe is that it's all a lie, none of it's true, and God is the ultimate epic reality and everything else is garbage. So why it just seems like a performance,
I think there's more to it than that. I do think that some of them do believe that God allows people to understand his creation. So they think they have the true scientific method. They don't. But they conflate observations with theories and stuff like that. They think science is about observations. No, science is about explaining the observations and the measurements. It's not about the observations and measurements. And then they commit all these reification fallacies and then claim everybody else does to say it supports their claim, but they never model it. They never predict anything based upon these concepts. And it's just I don't know what I think they do. Some of them sincerely want to understand the nature of reality, but they're trying. They have a conclusion they're trying to reach, and they're not trying to just find out what it is.
Right. Their predisposition is toward conspiracy, and that the establishment is wrong, and anybody who goes along with that is either part of the lie or has been fooled. And they're coming in with that line of thinking.
Let's hopefully get through Matthew's opening.
For the globe theory. Allegedly, the Earth tilts like this, with all of the stars tilting perfectly. Do you guys see what I'm saying? My hand represents the northern celestial hemisphere. I hope you guys are following what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be weird or throw some weird stuff at you guys. But the reason we know there's no tilt, the sky, it's like this. The sky would stay put and the Earth would tilt like that. But that's not what we see because the Earth is not tilting. What that is the sun's path goes from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. There is no Earth tilt, right? Next, here we go.
See, this misunderstanding of axial tilt too. It's that's why we got seasons, dumbass. Because the Earth is going, so you got the sun, and the Earth is going around like this. So that's why we get seasons. So it's still pointed the same way. It's still pointed the same way.
It's the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. You have to know that that's the fact, okay? That's why we know what he's saying is true, all right?
It's so stupid. Like, does he not know this? I don't think he does. I think he thinks it goes like this. Like, that's what he's showing?
Brother,
That's
it
not how
sounds
works.
good. It sounds good. You know, like, I think, again, there's this episode from in Living Color where the guy just says a bunch of fancy language, and then it's like, wow, this person's really smart. You know what I mean? So we got that. What they're saying must be true, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If water can't curve, how does it stick to the outside of the firmament? Well, because it's 7 layers. Don't you know that, BTF Wayne? Winston says it's something like 7 layers of firmament. I don't know how many it is. He doesn't know either. Just
But the
probably more than
firmament
one.
that's a biblical.
You also don't know what
right?
the firmament's made of either, right? Because they don't even know what it is. They
Oh.
say they know what it is.
I think
It's
Dito
biblical,
might have
right?
said.
The firmament comes from the Tanakh, right? That's from what I remember, right? That's where it's explained.
It's in the Old Testament, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Tanakh. Right.
Okay.
Go. The fourth mandatory conditional, which we can discuss if you guys want. I'm open-minded to whatever you guys say, okay? The fourth mandatory conditional for the globe theory to work, gravity. So that people could stand on the bottom of this pear. You see, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or do, you know what I mean? This is what the globe theory is telling me. Since I've been a kid in school, this is what the globe theory has been telling me.
No one stands at the bottom of the pear. Down is your feet. Down is where gravity's pulling you. So he even gets that wrong.
People are standing on the bottom of this pear dancing, right? Gravity, right? Now, as I understand gravity, it is the greater the mass, the greater the force of attraction, right? This is what I've heard. You guys, I don't know if you guys still agree with it or not, but greater the mass, greater the force of attraction. The reason we know that isn't true is because if there was something that weighed 100 pounds and something that weighed 1 pound, if gravity were true, the heavier object having more mass would indeed fall faster. But that's not what we see because it's not happening. The other one that I know about gravity is mass attracting mass. Now, okay, we don't see that. When I look in the sky, I do not see the moon being attracted. 10 seconds, I don't see the moon being attracted to the earth. I don't see the earth being attracted to the sun because there's no gravity. All of those mandatory conditionals for the globe are non-existent.
Except we do with the bulging. Yeah. Bulging of the oceans, right? So that does happen with the moon.
See, what he's failing to understand also is that strictly why we are in orbit is because we are in free fall, perpetual free fall around the sun. Our falling in toward the sun is at just the right angle where we're falling beyond the horizon. So we are continuing to fall. It's the same way we have the ISS in orbit and all that. And I don't know. He does. Gravity propagates or acts on all things equally. So the bit about 1 pound and 100 pound object being dropped or whatever, that is already a misunderstanding.
Well, the 100 pound, well, it's in mass, not weight, but we'll just assume
Right.
the grout 1G, right? So the 100 pound weight will drop slightly quicker, but it's but the ratio between the mass of the Earth and the 100 pound mass versus the 1 pound mass is so minimal that you can't measure the difference in speed of the acceleration of the drop of the 100 pound mass versus the 1 pound mass. That's why we don't detect that difference. But
so he's speaking in terms of like if you just dropped him here on the Earth rather than like in say a vacuum.
No. So even in a vacuum, because the masses in relationship to the mass of the Earth is so close to each other, the 1 pound versus the 100 pound, they're going to, even in a vacuum, probably not be able to measure the difference in acceleration in a vacuum. It depends on how, I guess, far. If it seemed like you could drop it infinite distance, at some point, the 100 pound mass is going to be ahead of the 1 pound mass because it's accelerating quicker. And the other problem we got on Earth when you fall in an atmosphere is you do have the friction of the atmosphere keeping it from reaching an infinite speed.
Right, terminal velocity. Yeah.
Terminal velocity of the atmosphere. That's another funny fact. So the gravity on the moon is 1/6 of the Earth. So the acceleration on the moon of things falling is 1/6 of what it is on the Earth. Which body has the highest possible terminal velocity? The moon or the Earth?
In relation to like falling toward each other?
No, it's like if something falls
or
20,000 feet on the moon, what is the terminal velocity going to be higher on the moon or the Earth falling like 20,000 feet?
When they, I'm not entirely certain. Intuitively, I would say it would be the same, but something feels off about that.
Because the terminal velocity is opposed by atmosphere. There's almost no atmosphere on the moon.
Yeah.
So you can reach much faster speeds on the moon than you can on Earth. Even though the rate of acceleration is 6 times quicker, so it compounds, right? It's an exponential increase on the Earth, but it reaches a terminal velocity that it won't reach on the moon. So it's actually much more dangerous to fall on the moon than it is on the Earth, because you still make that your speed, the momentum you maintain, the kinetic energy you have is based upon your speed and your mass, right? So if you're going faster, you're going to hit the ground much, much, much harder and kill yourself, experience much more G-force when you stop on the moon than you will on the Earth. I don't know. Somebody's probably corrected me.
But you'll still bounce, right?
Maybe. I imagine. It depends on how bad you hit. Yeah, sure. What you hit. But welcome to the stage, Simon Funk. Welcome
Thank
back.
you so much. Thank you so much.
So we just went through.
It doesn't matter.
We go through Matthew's opening. Yeah, I know. Now we're going through Nathan's opening.
Nathan. So Nathan's the younger one, isn't he?
Yeah, young Nathan.
Young Nathan. Yeah, he's a likable chap, isn't he?
Yeah,
he seems more intellectual than Matthew, honestly.
No, come on. I mean, you know, there's a very little difference between a £1 and £100 when it's compared to the Earth.
Yeah, well, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
His hair was much more. What's the word when somebody looks better with a different hairstyle? I liked his hairstyle was much better than it's been in the past.
I think the kids say he's got good bangs.
Yeah, his bangs look. The bangs he has look much better on him than having his forehead exposed. The dude has a wide forehead. No offense, Nathan, you're cool, but the bangs definitely highlight the best assets of your face there. Anyways, I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, totally. Because let's face it, this is an entertaining subject more than it is a serious intellectual.
Yes. It's not intellectual. We learn a lot talking about this. I learn a lot because I know. Look it up.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's a mind stretch because it does make you consider what seems obvious. I mean, I don't know. It seems obvious to me anyway.
Oh, that's the long game. They're not actually trying to convince us the Earth is flat. They're just trying to make us think more about what we know.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, and why not? I think I said this last time I was here, actually, which was back in my day. Flat Earth societies were about debate tactics and about learning how to debate, not actually trying to prove something or trying to show something false to be true. And the intellectual rigor by which you have to go through to disprove negative claims sometimes.
Yeah, well, Horizon's View, I counted 7 fallacies in their opening arguments. I counted an appeal to ignorance and non sequitur, false dilemma, confirmation bias, misunderstanding the burden of proof, cherry picking, and appeal to authority. And there's another one with Matthew's opening, which is cherry picking. So he says now over 100 miles, there should be 6,669 feet of curvature, which we don't see. This selectively highlights observations that they claim are unexplained by the globe model, ignoring the vast amount of evidence and methods that do confirm Earth's curvature. So, like, you can't visually see it. Okay, that is just dumb. We can measure it. Anyways, I want to continue with this. What's the next one? It's Nathan, young Nathan.
Okay, so to go off of what Matthew was saying here, we're talking about the shape of the Earth, the cosmology, geomorphology, the Earth shape, and so is it a globe? Or
what's geomorphology mean? What the heck? Have you ever heard that word? Geomorphology. It is a word.
I mean, morphology, I guess, just changed, right?
Is that a transformer or something?
No,
it sounds more like a fancier or a made-up term for
it's a dictionary word. It is the study of the physical features of the surface of the Earth and their relation to its geological structures. So it's a real word. Thank you very much, Nathan. I learned another word. Geomorphology. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, we went through the Iron Maiden stuff already, Atheist. You can rewind and play it 2 times speed.
of plane, these are 2 contentions. So we have the observations and the evidences. So for the case of curvature, we have things that would falsify the claim of curvature.
Okay, this annoys the hell out of me. Okay, everybody see the 2 globes there with the red circles on them from 2007, 2012? What's the reason for that?
Distance.
Dang, so complex. How many times has this been refuted and explained? Like,
I even saw the video where Simon Dan did that with his basketball. Where like he left the basketball in a place or something, and like took a picture of it way close up and then moved the camera backward and did it again, and you had this exact same phenomenon.
Yeah.
He did it with the globe recently as well. I don't know if that's the same one you're referring to.
I think it's probably the same one, because I think he referred to when he did it with the basketball, and then he showed the one he did it with the globe.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like, no one seems to understand. Like, if I have a single lens, just a single lens looking straight, right? And there's an object that's a 3-dimensional object in front of me, you cannot see both sides of the object because the single lens can't create 2 perpendicular lines to both sides of the object. It just can't. So it's physically impossible to see 180 degrees of the globe unless you're an infinite distance away, right? It's just physically just the basic geometry involved with it. You're like, well, how come you can't see the whole Earth? You can't even see 180 degrees of a globe. Are you like, just basic geometry? I don't get it. So like he said, elevation or distance is the reason for that. But
so it strikes me though, with this picture, 2 pictures of the globe, that somebody has deliberately rescaled them to be the same size.
Yeah.
Whoever did that knew what they were doing.
No, I mean, those are the images. So the person taking the pictures, it could be like when you focus in on the Earth, you're going to try to fill your whole camera frame or as much of your camera frame as you want to, right? But the amount of the Earth that's visible within the camera frame is going to be based upon your distance from the Earth. So the closer you get, so as long as you can get the whole Earth within the camera frame. So if you get too close, you're not going to be able to get the whole Earth within the camera frame.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then any recreated demonstrations. And then we have what would support curvature and any recreated demonstrations if you are contrary to the curve claim. So we have here the 4 lights experiment as well as an observation of.
And okay, so this 4 lights experiment, if people notice, this is the first picture on the top right. So they're seeing these 4 lights are at different distances from the observer, and you can see them all. But you look at them, like they're different sizes, different colors of lights refract differently because of the frequency of the light. And you also have refraction. And you also have the blooming effect of the light. You can actually see the light bloom around objects. Like, who did that? Somebody did a video of that recently. I think it was Bob, Science Bob, the guy that debated Caleb recently. Let me see if I can pull that up. It's on TikTok.
When you say like bloom around, you mean like if there's a sufficiently small enough object in front of it between you and the light can essentially like erase the object because of the bloom effect?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Something like that. What's the guy's name? The Science Bob guy?
No. I don't
Somebody
think I'm
let me
familiar.
know in the live chat. Bob the Science guy, thank you. Bob the Science guy. I think he did it recently.
PhD Tony.
Oh, is he here?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome up on stage, PhD Tony, if you want to. But yeah, we're going through your debate, and I want to see if I can find where he did this with the light. I'm pretty sure it was him that did with the light.
Yeah, there toward the end, Tony like expertly talked about what we were just talking about with the two Earths down there in the bottom, and talked about how he had actually done the modeling himself and saw this for himself.
Yeah. So here I found the TikTok, and it's only 3 minutes. And I'm just going to play it. So this explains that first image.
And according to my curve calculations, that is impossible on a spherical Earth of radius 3959. Well, it's not impossible because there it is, and the Earth is indeed spherical of radius 30. So let's see if we can figure out why that happens. To do that, I decided to do a little kitchen science. Let's have a look. So let's do a little kitchen experiment with a laser, a globe, and a camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the laser on. So the laser is on. You can clearly see that here. So there's the laser. Now, it's just touching the top of this globe. It's basically pointed at the horizon of the globe. Now, there's two things that I want to show you. First of all, here's the pattern on the laser. It's an X. Now, when we're on the other side of the globe, as you can see, the bottom of the X is missing, but that laser dot is still there. So let's take our camera and bring it back. You see the laser dot right here? Let's bring it back a little bit so the laser dot is above is just touching the very top of the case. And you can see that the laser dot is still there. Now, once again, just to show that nothing's been moved, there's the laser dot. There's the cell phone camera. Now, as you can see, that laser dot is still above that cell phone. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at what the cell phone is seeing. As you can clearly,
there you go.
Even though the laser is above the level of the camera, see there it is right there, you can still very clearly see the laser dot on the edge of the horizon on that little globe. As a matter of fact, we can even move this back a little further, and the laser dot's still there. Now the laser's not even touching the cell phone camera anymore. You can clearly see it above it. But when you look at the image from the cell phone camera, which is well below the line of sight to that laser, you still see the laser. Now, the other thing that you'll see is little flashes of light above.
I think that demonstrates it, right? So
yeah.
So this is
base of some poles, and there are multiple data points which we can see the.
Oops. So that's that first picture there he's showing.
Yeah.
With the 4 lights. Debunked. Hey, welcome to the stage, PhD Tony. How did you like that debate today? You're muted, bud.
Yeah.
No. You might have to select your microphone and the 3 dots there.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. Some reason it chose to change my settings on my microphone for some reason. Anyway, how are you all?
Oh, wonderful. Good job tonight. You versus the other 2.
Thank you.
Did you pay T-Jump to just make an appearance or no?
Well, I appeared in a previous modern day debate with T-Jump, and he did a good job of keeping me calm and keeping the conversation focused. So I appreciated that, and I thought he might do the same with me here. But he was less active than perhaps I hoped.
Okay, you did a good job. I mean,
no, thank you.
Yeah.
So I did normally I like do a review of everybody in the debate, but I decided like to cover like the opening arguments because I saw a lot there that I don't know if you got to address it. Like I don't know if you addressed the stupid 666 thing, but we addressed
not at
it.
all.
So.
Okay.
Like how dumb is that? I had Dustin Nemos did that to me. I was like about the moon landing debate. I'm like, well, okay, so my opponents over here argued that Satan hit everything, and the other guy didn't understand second law of thermodynamics. And that's your argument? Like, come on.
Yeah. It did let me know what I was in for. I didn't quite know the level that they were going to be operating at, but the level was set fairly low, fairly rapidly.
Yeah. There's not many Witsits that can like just gish gallop like he does.
Yes.
There's people that try to emulate him, but
yeah.
And even with Witsit, all you gotta do is slow him down. Slow him down. I've like learned that.
Yes.
And he's better in 1v1 than 2v2 too.
He certainly is. I don't know. Sort of he's got one trick, which is to say, there are some minor problems at the outer edges of science. Well, yeah. But that doesn't make the Earth flat, does it?
Well,
of course it does.
Yeah. Well, he's saying it's a reification fallacy because you're presuming space-time. I'm like, no, we're not presuming space-time. We're saying on the presumption space-time is true, we can model all this stuff, go test it. Oh, shit. All this stuff, we can model all this stuff if space-time's true. But you haven't seen space-time. I'm like, you haven't seen the bending to space-time. Like no one's claiming we have.
Well, we've seen time. We've seen gravitational time dilation, right?
Yes. Yep. Which is predicted by space-time.
Yes.
Like over 200 microns, we've measured time dilation. The width of a hair, a human hair.
I think we probably witnessed time dilation just watching one of those debates. To be fair.
I did it. I was going to make notes about that. He kept bringing up Lorentz transformations for
I did notice
for geology.
Yeah, well, so he's aware that you need a coordinate transformation, right? So you need some sort of transformation that goes from latitude, longitude to X, Y, say. And he thought that the Lorentz transformation was one of those, not really realizing what he was talking about, but I didn't really want to sort of derail the conversation, correcting him on that. But it did strike me as that's not one of the transformations you really need to be thinking about right now.
So you're telling me a flat earther misunderstood something?
Well, this comes from
I hate to break it to you.
This comes from them. Yeah, this comes from them cherry picking a quote from Einstein's book Theory of Relativity, where he's trying to explain to like college graduates, not physicists, because he's trying to dumb it down to people that at least have a college education in his book that he wrote. Understanding that a Michelson-Morley experiment refuted the ether, the movement through the ether. They didn't understand that either. He covers that in this. But and then we had Lorentz transformations already when it dealt with electromagnetic fields to explain like cathode ray tubes, because electrons have the same charge, weren't they always repelling each other forever? They don't. So they had to appeal. So they figured out, so there must be some type of contraction going on. So they just asserted it as true, Lorentz transformation. So then you had, was it Lorentz and whoever, but the Lorentz again, after Michelson-Morley said, well, maybe we're having length contraction. So they appealed to Lorentz transformations to save the luminiferous ether.
Yes.
So now you had to appeal to the luminiferous ether and Lorentz transformation to explain the movement of the Earth in the solar system, when we had the theory of relativity, Einstein's theory, that just the concept of this bending of space-time around masses that removed all of these other things. So now we only have to appeal to one concept instead of all these multiple concepts to explain all these transformation, length contractions, time dilations, mercury, right? Like lensing, all these other things that we could see. And they call it a reification fallacy. No, it's not a reification fallacy. It's just, we're saying it's the model is proved. Well, it's not proven. We don't want to say it's proven, but the model allows us to predict things that we observe.
Yes.
But that's, yeah. So he's appealing. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, this is the point that I was trying to get across, is that the criterion for what is a good model and what is a bad model is its capacity to match the observational data without unnecessary adjustment or fiddling of parameters, and that is precisely the parameter by which, or the criterion by which, flat Earth fails and the spheroidal Earth succeeds.
And Mercedes F1 fan says time dilation isn't real. We've never been to space. We don't have to go to space. We've done it on Earth. We have measured time dilation at 200 microns, the width of a human hair. Yeah, so that's done in, I think rubidium, isn't it? Rubidium, supercooled rubidium matrices. You can observe time dilation there using their optical clock capacity. We've also observed time dilation on Earth in particle accelerators, special relativistic time dilation. So you accelerate these particles, and their decays slow down the faster and faster you move them. So we've observed both special relativistic time dilation and gravitational and general relativistic time dilation. So the Mercedes is just incorrect one there. Yeah, I won't say it's common, but people don't know, like, there's time dilation under general relativity. People always appeal to special relativity. It seems like in like common discourse I have with people. So,
I got to give this, like, just saying stuff and it being true a try. Like if I just say I'm gonna walk out my door in the morning and my 07 Dodge Ram is gonna be a brand new, F-150 2024. It's gonna be true, right? Like if I just say it.
Well, you're well on the way to being a sovereign citizen at that point. Yeah, the claim that we haven't observed time dilation is just fallacious nonsense, and and I'm actually quite glad that you make a point of bringing up the gravitational time dilation. And I mean, there's a long history of these measurements using atomic clocks, going back many decades. First of all, we had to put them on a plane. Then we used the Tokyo Tower. to investigate time dilation. Then we were able to get down to 3 foot, and as you say, now we're at the sub-millimeter level. And they're doing experiments about this. They're formulating experiments about exploring time dilation on quantum entangled pairs.
The same group that published the paper where they measured the time dilation at 200 microns just published a paper this January. I don't know why I'm looking at this stuff. I've got roped into flat Earth debates is why, but they just came out with like a smaller, more accurate clock. So they're getting closer and closer where they'll hopefully be able to measure time dilation at a quantum level. If they can, then maybe we can figure out if there is some type of quantum gravity. If so, what it is, how it affects the world, how it affects our understanding. Because right now we can't measure at that like small of distance.
Yeah.
So.
But that this is one of the things, like one of the things that sort of they don't get into, that they just don't know. The average globe earther and the average flat earther are equally ignorant of the fact that day length changes. The length of the day changes by milliseconds throughout the year, and in response to tidal forcing. You have to measure it very, very precisely, but you can see the effects on day length calculations, and these can be measured using these variations in day length can actually be measured with laser gyroscopes. So you can measure the change in velocity of the Earth in response to tidal forcing on the equatorial bulge. So the precision with we can in real time map the progress of laser bolts down to the attosecond, so down to the trillionth of a second. Our ability to measure the flow of time and to observe things happening on those small timescales is incredibly impressive. And then we've got people like Matthew saying, "Well, I don't see it with my naked eye, so it can't be real."
I see curve. I never, like, how would you even know if you see flat? That's what I don't understand with these claims. Those common sense. Where do you ever experience something that's flat, and to even know it's flat? Like, everything I see is not flat. It looks close to flat, maybe by wall, but
the flat Earth model is a pretty accurate model. That's why we use it scientifically. The mathematics is a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to program and construct your models. So if the Earth were flat, it'd be a lot more convenient for geophysicists like myself to do the modeling involved. As it is, we've got to do a lot of very difficult computations because it turns out it isn't flat. So every time we check whether or not the predictions of a spheroidal Earth match observations on whatever scale, we get agreement. And the only time the flat earthers can sort of claim that they don't is when they look out their window. It's just nonsense.
Like you could basically do all your calculations with high school geometry. You wouldn't need all that trigonometry and shit to try to calculate things. So,
well, you'd be using plane trigonometry, not that distance formula that I showed. That's based on spherical trigonometry, which was developed in its original form by the ancient Greeks. Sorry. But we wouldn't need to use that. We could use plane trigonometry if the Earth were flat, and we wouldn't. It would be extremely simple to calculate the distance and the bearing.
I do phasor analysis for my job every day. It's electrical field, so deal with 3-phase and symmetrical components. Doesn't matter, but it's how we calculate ground faults and phase-to-phase faults, 3-phase faults on electrical systems. So like I hear all these people make all these claims. I'm like, dude, you don't even know how many degrees are in a triangle, and you're telling me what I know? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Just
yeah. And they constantly underestimate just how precisely we can measure stuff. We can measure the precession of the Earth, the annual precession of the Earth, how much the equinoxes move every year. We can measure that. We can measure nutation effects, the effects of nutation on longitude and on length of day. We can measure those effects as well. So we've just got all of these measurements. Once you look at things extremely precisely, the things that you thought were true, the things that you thought were stationary and were constant, they aren't. They don't turn out to be true. The center of the Earth isn't a stationary point. It's moving through time. You personally will experience, if you had a GPS receiver near you, a professional grade one, you would notice that you go up and down by 20 centimeters every day due to solid Earth tides. You would be able to detect the loading effects of atmospheric tides. The only reason that flat earthers can claim the things that they claim is because they haven't investigated these with any sort of precision. They haven't looked at it in any sort of detail.
Well, I love that point, by the way, that because it highlights something about the conspiracy overall, that they show their ignorance, because there have been people, and there are going to continue to be people who are going to find the tiniest little nooks and crannies of science to dig their fingers down into and look at it at like even the most minute details that they can to make things more and more accurate. And it's just part of the flat Earth delusion, where they don't consider this kind of accuracy that people seek and go and find and measure, and we can now like share it openly with the rest of the world and show this is how very accurately we can see pick any one thing. And it just I love that you made that point, because it just shows the depths of their ignorance of what human knowledge has achieved.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of these things, not many people know, Glober or Flat Earther, but the distinguishes the Flat Earthers is that they refuse, they've made up their mind before they get this evidence. They refuse to sort of adjust their beliefs in response to the fact, well, we know that their claims aren't true. As I see somebody in chat asking how we know the dimensions of the Earth. Well, we can pick 4 GPS points, for instance, have a look at their Cartesian coordinates and draw a plane through 3 of those points, because 3 non-collinear points define a plane, and we can find the distance between the 4th point and the plane. And that distance is about 9,000 kilometers if you choose your 4 points properly. So the vertical dimension of the Earth must be at least 9,000 kilometers. It's more. So we know that it's not planar. It's not even approximately planar. So these questions, how do we know? Well, we've solved for them. We've solved for all of this stuff. So
I think that Mercedes' comment here points out the problem is, so there's these questions in philosophy, and I think they want to feel like they were put here for a reason, that they have a special purpose. And for whatever reason, a lot of religious people, and like MC Toon, right? MC Toon's a Christian, has no problem believing the Earth is a globe, and still believing like reality was created for maybe not necessarily for him, but for humans and all this other stuff, and still feeling like he has a place and purpose under God's eyes, without appealing to like the Earth itself being like the center of all existence. Like, but I think there's a lot to this claim. And if you heard, both Nathan and Matthew made it into a religious argument, and Nathan brought up the point that Like he couldn't go into some biology thing, I guess, because he was denying evolution, probably for the same exact reasons, because of religious beliefs and not because science at all.
Well, I really think that there's a common misconception that science and religion are competing, and they're not even trying to answer the same questions, right? You can be a Christian and a scientist. You can, and I was for the better part of for certainly more than a decade, almost two. But they're not internally inconsistent. You just need to accept that God is capable of doing things in a scientific way. If God wanted to create people via evolution, he could certainly do that. I don't see any problem. If he wants to make the earth round, I don't see a problem. If he wants to make the earth 14 billion years old and however large and make it very difficult to analyze, he can do that. I don't see why they feel the need to put limitations on God in the way that they do.
Well, there are some theological reasons potentially that might come into that, such as one of the arguments of divine hiddenness, for instance. I think they would have to be go quite a way to be able to get into that argument, because it's not a common one for atheists to use. But apart from that, I think also, it seems to me that the main reason. One of the main reasons that people have doubt in faith, and those two things seem to be conflicting. One of the ways to deal with that confliction is to say, but I don't have to have evidence. I just have to have revelation. I just have to feel it strongly enough, like you were saying about your Ford truck, for instance, right? And if I could think that God has actually revealed it to me in some way, then it must be right, because it's God. So it's a form of heading towards presuppositionalism as an
even underneath the surface of that.
Sorry, let me just finish. And once you get down that line of theology, then all hope is lost in terms of trying to be able to reason your way out of faith.
Well, well, I think you can. I mean, faith is obviously based on personal revelation and personal experience, and I don't think that you should. I never understood how anybody could claim that they could prove the existence of God or prove their faith to anybody else. But if we look at Mercedes' most recent thing, nobody's claiming that people are meaningless, and I don't see why the Earth being round would lead to that conclusion. And I don't particularly, I'm not interested in attacking anybody's religious faith. If it brings you comfort, if it makes you feel better, fine. If it leads to negative behavior, prejudice, and attacking other people's rights, then we're going to have a problem. But if it's just something that makes you feel emotionally valid and good, then more luck to you. And I'm not going to attack you on the basis of that. But I will take issue with what is tantamount to delusion. You're denying the nature of reality in order to support a religious position, and it's not healthy for you. You're wasting your existence, and you're wandering into a negative situation. You're making yourself look like a fool. Anyway.
Right, but this is a problem, Tony, if with all due respect, I get what you're saying there, but there seems to be two ways of dealing with the cognitive dissonance of trying to hold to a position which gives you purpose, right? And it has external kind of objective purpose for you personally as a person, which is some of the religious motivation, I think. And then at the same time, holding to that dogma, right? But at the same time, to relieve the cognitive dissonance of trying to find your own purpose, in what seems to be a chaotic world, etc., etc. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're going through those early phases of developing your mind, right, in those late teens to mid-20s, say, right? Where a lot of people find this struggle, right, and especially this generation that are coming up now seems to be, I hear, struggling more and more with that dissonance. And religion gives you a very good answer for it, because it means you don't have to think, and it squares away some of the stress that you would otherwise go through, I think, to try and square some of these very difficult nihilistic problems that we face as a human species, right? And so saying that we're at the center of it, the purpose is we are at the center. The whole thing was designed for us, and therefore
we're special.
That is a very comforting thought, I think, very comforting thought. So when you say things like, well, we're a speck of dust. This is what I got from Mercedes. We're a speck of dust in a very small speck of dust on the planet, which is zooming at, whatever speed, and it's not the center of anything. It's not even the center of the solar system. Well, that's just multiplying that cognitive dissonance again. So I can really understand why people find this anti-scientific viewpoint very appealing, because it really lowers the cognitive dissonance of holding this purposeful belief, which has nothing to do with science. And let me just reiterate what you were kind of hinting at there.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go with it anyway.
I mean, but I think that's a problem, like how we're raising our children too. We're not teaching them how to cope with these type of issues as they grow up. We either like just say, well, this is how society functions. This is God's plan. This is X, Y, Z. Like, we're not very philosophical as human beings. And maybe that's just the nature of who we are. I don't know how we can actually fix that, but most people, I think, get around just fine. They believe they have some type of purpose, whether it's they find it within themselves. And I would say everybody finds this within themselves.
Of course.
External purpose doesn't happen.
How long do you think it takes, though, to do that? I mean, for me, let me just say one thing quickly. For me, when I heard Black Sabbath, I understood what nihilism was and why it wasn't such a major issue. Okay, because there's plenty of answers out there on the spectrum, right? So for me, I think I got it quite quickly, right? But a lot of people don't seem to get it till, as I say, they're past, till their brain's fully grown, and then they settle down and find out, well, do I really need these early beliefs that I had when I was a teenager? And maybe they start questioning it then. Maybe it's just midlife crisis that makes them reassess it all again. That's a long period of time to be trying to hold cognitive dissonance in your head, right?
It is, but I mean, I successfully managed to remain religious well into my 30s, so well after my brain had reached full maturity. But the key difference now, I think, is that there's a lot of people making a lot of arguments that religious thought should apply more generally, that you should be free to believe what you want in any sphere. You should be free to believe that the earth is flat. You should be free to believe that there's an ether. You should be free to believe that medicines don't work. You should be free to believe all sorts of things. If you encourage that, and you encourage sort of technical ignorance, then you end up with an electorate that is too ignorant to participate in democracy, too disconnected from reality to cast an informed vote. And I feel like that's what we're seeing come up. And I feel also that that's the result of many decades of effort on the part of religious adherents.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I would just mention George Berkeley, the Bishop George Berkeley, of course, who famously was an empiricist and held belief in God equally. So again, I agree with you completely. There's no direct conflict between science and religion, provided you're prepared to hold something like empiricism as the best method, or at least a methodological, but yeah, as a best method to at least understand how we should view reality and separate that, I guess, in some way from this anti-intellectual kind of shielding of what people feel is an onslaught by the empirical method to try and undermine what is fundamentally I don't know, maybe I would say some kind of comforting belief structure rather than just a challenging belief structure. When I'm obviously in Britain, and I guess you're Australia.
Yep.
And we have a very loose or mediocrity, the sweet mediocrity of the Anglican Church is what it's called over here. And basically, people like the Archbishop of Canterbury are constantly reassessing the position of religion in light of new discoveries through science, and that's the fundamentalism part of it is just taken out of the bite of the church and the bite of the dogma, and they find no conflicts. As I say, we have a good history of empiricism in the church anyway, so I think the Anglican Church has particular advantage.
Even in England, you still have people choosing choosing what they want to believe. That Brexit is going to do all of these magical things. That COVID lockdowns are optional, etc., etc. So I mean, I don't think it's an entirely American phenomenon, and it certainly feeds into the problem of sort of the problem posed by social media, where there's no sort of people can spout whatever nonsense they want, and there's
there is a rise of fundamentalism. Sorry, let me just say there is a rise of fundamentalism in Britain as well. So I completely agree with what you're saying there.
I think you are making somewhat a category error when you conflate like personal values for how they wanted society to run with something like Brexit. Like they may be wrong about the outcomes, but people can want different outcomes based upon their own personal values with something like empirical claims that, based on science. So I don't know, like if those are within the same category of like quote unquote false beliefs. But like stuff with vaccines, I would definitely say like that's more of a scientific claim that we can know.
Well, it was an objective fact that Brexit was not going to achieve the things that people were told it would achieve. But I guess I've derailed the conversation.
That's okay.
From where it was supposed to be going. So
you're not the only one. And of course, when politicians tell you this is how things are going to be, that's if you think that that's actually reality, then you're probably not in reality yourself.
Well, I'm a dirty globalist who believes we should have open borders, right to travel anywhere they want to, and reduction and like removal of corporate shields and protection and stuff like that. But I'm a libertarian. I want to go back to the conversation though. I was speaking about religion and science. So like I did the last debate, a modern day debate against Nadir about is the Quran scientific? It's the same thing. Like when you try to conflate religion with science, you run into all these problems. It's like, are you going to lose your religious faith if science proves it's false? Like, probably not. Like, so you're going to have some type of conflict at some point. There's a series of books I read as a kid by Piers Anthony that like explored this entire topic. If people are familiar with, like, I think it's A Green Mother, and there's a whole series of books where like God is like this entity and evolution was like a tool that God used to do everything and stuff like that. And it's sort of like there's ways to combine what we know about the world. And I hear some people say, well, God put me on here to desire to be wise, to desire me to know true things about reality, and we have methodologies to do that. So whatever I learn can't be in conflict with God. So what I learn must be just in conflict of my understanding of what God was trying to tell me, and the truth is revealed through like the empirical claims. And so I have to make my religious text, my understanding of that, conform to reality, because that's what God wants me to figure out, is to understand what reality is really about. And then you can find all your purpose. You can find like, how you deal with death and stuff like that, even though I think we should have better methods to deal with that. Because if you don't teach a child how to cope with like death and stuff in the family except through faith, and if you lose their faith and they don't have those coping mechanisms, you have to like relearn that. And I think there's better ways we can raise our children. Anyways, but I do want to
certainly greater attention to mental health techniques and mental health self-help should be part of our education system, so the kids are better educated to defend themselves and to detect toxic presences as they become adults. It's not something that we teach them now, but it ought to be.
I would like to ask a question.
Yeah.
So PhD Tony, what did you feel when Satan was brought up during the debate, when Matthew brought it up as being like this causal situation for why the Earth is flat versus a globe model? How do you engage something like that as a scientist?
That's an interesting question. I resolved not to address it. There's no arguing against that. So if somebody's going to assert the existence and the agency of something whose presence can't be detected, it can't be confirmed, I can ask them what. My main recourse was to always try and ask them, what's your evidence for that claim? And that's had I wanted to, I could have addressed what's your evidence for that claim, but ultimately I know from my own religious experience, it would be, well, I know that's true because I've experienced that, or it's a result of my experiences. I understand religious thought well enough to know that that's where they would go. It would be pointless to sort of condition them on that, or to confront them on that. Instead, I tried to sort of get them to look at data sets that would challenge their beliefs, that would challenge their main conviction is that the flat Earth model works. They may have other religious convictions, but that's independent of does the flat Earth model work, and that's where I wanted the conversation to focus, was on that, and not whether or not they believe in Satan, whether or not what they believe Satan has or hasn't done, because that'll veer off the rails in no time at all.
It seems like everything, I guess, over the last 20, 30 minutes has kind of been dancing around this, the central idea of whether science and religion are at odds with one another. And really, I guess it's also playing at beliefs, like personal convictions and beliefs on whatever level. And I feel like because it was brought up that people should be allowed to have their beliefs, and I think it's also important to realize that beliefs are very personal and should be personal, and when somebody encounters something, I believe Funk brought up the cognitive dissonance. When somebody holds to opposing beliefs, that's when empiricism should take over, and they should have enough, integrity within themselves to actually weigh it against their belief and determine whether or not it has merit. And if it does, then they should change their belief or get rid of the belief. And that's where like the whole issue stems, where somebody begins to refuse empiricism, the reality of it, and then they hear somebody else bring it up, and to defend their mind or their feelings or their belief over it, they will assert their belief over the fact or the empirical data, and that's where people become emboldened to then deny reality and science, and thus bringing forth the whole religion versus science thing. And in some cases, to some people, it is a very, very real fight, religion versus science, and then to others, of course, it's nonsensical. We hand wave it away and say that's silly. They can be simpatico, and in a lot of cases they very much can, but to other people they cannot, and that's the whole. Should it be a personalized belief? Yes, but should they be allowed to, shout from the rooftops that this empirical thing is false and their belief is true? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that there should be sort of more significant controls over publication of strictly counterfactual material. But it seemed to be, that everybody tells me that that's censorship. But I think that it is having a very negative social effect, that people are allowed to do that at the moment. But whatever. I'm never likely to be in charge of anything important. My position doesn't count.
Yeah, censorship in the name of protecting the public is a very dicey situation to get into.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, as soon as you introduce this, then somebody else who is malicious, will use exactly the same rationale to twist it to their purpose. So we need some mechanism that can achieve some level of independence from distortion. We don't have that yet, but sort of the Finns are changing their education system to sort of include misinformation training. So
That's awesome.
To train children, to train teenagers in how to recognize the techniques that misinformation merchants use, how they lie with statistics or how they lie with fallacious arguments. And that seems to be having some sort of beneficial effect. So with me, it'll always come back to we need to reform our education system in a number of ways.
I always thought like a fundamental understanding of economics, polling, statistics, and stuff like that was important to have as an adult. But a lot of that stuff you really don't get into at all unless you go to university, and most people don't go to university. So, and even if they do, it's not necessarily they're going to take those type of courses, even though everybody should take economics. Like some statistics class for whatever field they're going into. But
you know what's funny? If you're a social work major, you have to do everything. You have to do economics. You have to do biology. You have to do American politics. You have to do statistics. You have to do everything because that's what social workers are supposed to be, well equipped across the board in all those fields. So
a well-rounded liberal arts education is very important for everybody, I think. And I think we shortchange ourselves with some of the science degrees too, because they don't focus as much sometimes in like the more broad liberal arts education. I think liberal arts education is very important. You hear the history, you hear some of these social sciences, you understand some of these other topics that you don't get in a strict like engineering degree or something like that. And maybe we do lose out like on that critical thinking stuff. And it's sort of interesting when we looked at like law school graduates when I went to law school. The people that did the worst in law school were engineers, like because they wanted like strict rules and a way to understand information. Where with the law, it's not necessarily that it's more fluid, but it's definitely much less formulaic than engineering is. And I just think maybe we do need. I don't know how you do that. Like you can't really teach somebody statistics in high school if they don't have the background for it.
Something occurred to me that the way education has changed in the last maybe 200 years, I guess, or since the Enlightenment, bearing in mind that most of, I guess, some time ago, there was one degree, right? Classics and philosophy, and that was pretty much all everybody had. And then as science became more enlightened and progressive and the scientific method developed, then science became more specialized, I guess. And this seems to be some of the issue, is that, science is very difficult to understand because, of course, people want to talk at the margins. They don't want to talk about at the basics, right? And, you go, by the time you've got through, say, classical mechanics, right? Well, that's a lot of information right there, which is considered basic information now, because then you've got to do quantum mechanics and relativity. And that's a lot more complex, and the maths is more complex as a result. So it does seem to me that there's an ever losing battle of trying to stuff more information in a quicker period of time to people whose brains aren't yet developed, and it's that was never the case before, right? It was never the case that you do like 3 degrees in one, right? Economics, philosophy, and the classics. And that was good enough, So it does seem very strange to me that we're expecting a lot from people that are just 18.
I don't know the answer. Better education.
Well, I think
better parenting.
Dr. Tony has just said it right already here. PhD Tony said it. More specialist training on how to receive information, how to deal with it, and sift through it. I guess strong awareness of Bayesian analysis would really help as well.
But the Bayesian analysis isn't like a high school level topic either, but you can understand the concepts, I guess. So you're still talking like a specialized education within college, even within the sciences. Like most people don't go. How many people go into the sciences?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. And I guess it's easy as well. One of the things I've realized in the religious debates is that, of course, everybody on that other side really likes to stress deductive reasoning, which of course is very important. But as a strong atheist, I rely on induction much more for my daily life than I ever do on deduction. Although lazily, I always work through things quickly deductively, and then look and see, well, okay, so now I've
not really deductive.
This hasn't really worked. I can see some fallacies. Perhaps I need to go and look at the data and find out actually what my common sense, why my common sense is wrong or my intuition is wrong.
Even William Lane Craig's famous Kalam cosmological argument's really an inductive argument when you actually read his book. It's not he formulates it as a deductive argument, but each one of his premises are supported by inductive claims through science. So yeah, so
I would argue all deductive arguments are at base inductive. Sure. Otherwise they fall foul of I don't know, infinite regressive justification or circular reasoning,
or dogmatism.
Yeah, or foundationism maybe.
So you have the trilemma. Man chooses. I say Agrippa's trilemma because it's easier for me to say, but if people don't understand what that means, it means like all like ontological claims devolve into dogmatism, like you just assert certain things are true, and then everything follows from those claims, or circular reasoning where the premises they explain themselves, I guess, and then
the premise is assumed to be the conclusion. The conclusion is a premise which is assumed to be true.
Yeah. And then infinite regress where there's always a previous cause. So, and you run into problems with all three of those with understanding how they could be true. And so that's the trilemma. Like, if you can't formulate a foundation for knowledge, how can you know that anything is absolutely true? So that's why a lot of people will say they deny any beliefs, and they'll be like skeptical of any type of claim. I'm not that person, but I understand the appeal to like not believe anything. I tend to believe scientific claims are the best knowledge we have about the nature of reality. So I have no problem
It's
saying
one
that
way out of the trilemma. In fact, there's an interesting article by Alex Malpass, Dr. Alex Malpass, on the non-circularity of inductive reasoning.
Doesn't he talk about naturalistic pragmatism?
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. He said something to me about, oh no, that was a morality claim. Yeah. I just have to go through the thing. I mean, I haven't spoken to him for about 3 months.
Well, normally I do these.
Extremely embarrassed now.
Normally I do these for 90 minutes. I'm not a philosopher. I do like to think about how I know things. But and I think sometimes it's maybe better to take a little bit more humble claim with some of these flat earthers to say, listen, I'm not saying we can see space-time. All I'm seeing is a very humble claim. If I assert this concept is true, and we can formulate all these formulas to explain nature of reality and all these predictions about reality, and we go out and we these predictions come true, like, okay, so you're going to see like just appealing to the concept is magic. I mean, if you want to, you can say it's magic, or you can see there's something about that concept that maybe that concept isn't just a concept, but it is a concrete thing. It's something that actually physically exists in the real world. But we don't go out and visually see gravity. We don't go out there and visually see a lot of things that we measure, that we can deduce from or infer from the evidence about the nature of reality. And time is one of the things what we infer.
I did have one further question for Tony, if I may, if you've got time to indulge. Yep. Which is just, again, it's a mirror image of a thing that I'm involved with, but I've noticed it with Flat Earth as well, which is how much time do you think you should be pressing them to give a positive claim and defend the argument versus showing them that the reasons why the Earth is spherical in this case?
Well, I think that we, sort of, I feel like it should be 50-50. Like we should certainly be presenting our evidence, and we should be asking for their evidence. And I notice I noticed that Taking Back Eden is a flat earther. He's asked a question about rotation. He doesn't know the data sets that relate to rotation. He doesn't know that he doesn't know what causes geostrophic flow in the atmosphere or in the oceans. He doesn't know what the cause of western boundary current intensification is. He doesn't know any of the data sets that are there. And he takes the fact that he's ignorant and sort of weaponizes it. These things can't be the case, and that's not sufficient. It's not sufficient to say. It's not sufficient for him to say, "I find your claims ludicrous, therefore my claim is better." That's not sufficient. That's not logical. That's not scientific. Here's our evidence. Here's the evidence that we have. And where's the evidence that you have? Taking Back Eden, quoting Bullet Train at me isn't going to change anything. You can feel free to explain geostrophic. Sorry, I'm descending into beginning concentration, but yeah, I feel like we should present our information, our data, why we believe our stuff, but we should also ask, why do you believe your stuff? What is your evidence? And if, like Taking Back Eden, their evidence is, well, I just find it ridiculous. Okay, you can find it ridiculous all you want, but that isn't evidence for your claim. Observational evidence is what counts.
It's not argument either. It's just incredulity. It's an argument from ignorance. Is all you're presenting. You're just saying, I don't accept that as true. Like this question here, I'm not even going to answer it. I don't want us to answer it because they know the answer to this question because it's been answered a 1,000 times in all these debates. They're saying 1,000 miles per hour at the equator and 0 at the poles. You know the answer to that claim. Why continue to ask the same stupid question? Is it just to get somebody into a gotcha? Is that the claim? Like, is it you don't understand the concept of rotational speed? Do you understand like the difference between a vector and a rotational speed? Like, is this like, are these foreign concepts? Like, I don't get it. Why do they keep bringing up these inane things that get explained in every single debate?
I think their central problem is that they can't distinguish between velocity and acceleration. They assume that because the velocity is large, therefore this effect must be obvious. It isn't. If everything's traveling at the same velocity, the laws of physics are the same. It's only when you experience an acceleration that you're going to see anything. And the acceleration that we experience as a result of Earth's rotation is actually quite small. It's 2 pi divided by 86,400 radians per second, which is tiny. So the angular velocity, that's the angular. That's how. In order to, I'm not going to go into detail with, but that's our angular velocity, and you have to square that, multiply it by r, and then that gives you the size of the acceleration. I don't go against my senses. I don't assume that my senses are superior to all scientific instrumentation. The argument that the guy presented in the debate, I can't see curvature. Well, yes, you can't see radio waves. You can't see the back of your head. That doesn't mean that the back of your head doesn't exist. It's the things that you can't see. The universe is full of stuff that you can't see. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And relying on your senses to trump the scientific instrumentation that we have is just willful blindness. Like we've developed X-rays, we've developed ultrasounds, we've developed a bunch of instruments for seeing stuff. And to ignore the instrumentation and claim, well, I don't see it, I don't feel it. Nobody's saying that you should feel it. That's not our claim. So the fact that you don't isn't actually evidence of anything.
Have you never seen someone spin a basketball on the finger?
Hey, I can do that.
No, I've never seen it in person, but yeah.
I'm lucky. I've seen the Harlem Globetrotters.
All right. Anyway, I am getting tired, and I might have to leave. So.
Yeah, I think I want to end the stream, but I appreciate having you. We're not going to make it through the whole thing, but that's okay.
All right. But thank you for having me on, and lovely to meet you all.
Thank you, Tony.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Pleasure.
All right. Well, yeah, I think I'm going to end the stream. Maybe I'll do a different stream because since I went through all the time to cut this up or make a video or something to refute all these claims. But anyways, I hope you all liked the show. But I'm going to cut the stream short. I need to go take care of my foot and stuff like that. So I don't know what's wrong. I might have some fractures, I guess they said, in my foot. That's why it's sore. That's not actually gout. I don't have a clue. Like, they don't know what's up with that, like medicine. Oh, now I'm going to feed into the conspiracy theories with all the flat earthers. Anyways, I don't want to be hard on you taking back Eden, but it is a point. Like, why do I answer the same questions over and over and over again? Like you get the answers. Like, figure something else out. And it's also a straw man. When we say you don't feel that motion, that's within the model we say is true. So you'd have to explain why you ought to feel that motion if the Earth was flat. That's your burden to explain why you would feel 1,000 miles per hour vector. Why would you feel that? That's your burden. You haven't heard.
And it all comes down to conspiracies, right? Like, everything's a conspiracy specifically against their worldview or whatever, and that kind of like just pulls it right up by the roots. Like, if every single thing has to be a conspiracy against your way of thinking, then maybe it's not the body of science that has the problem.
Yeah, okay, take it back, Eden. These people you're hearing this from about the 1,000 miles per hour at the equator have heard the explanation countless times. Countless times. They're still spreading the same information. When you're driving in a car at 60 miles per hour, what you feel is when you slam on the gas to get to 60 miles per hour. When you're at 60 miles per hour on a straight freeway with like a smooth road, you don't feel that forward acceleration. You maintain, put on the cruise control. Earth is in cruise control at 1,000 miles per hour. The only thing you feel is a change in acceleration, or acceleration or deceleration. That's all you feel. Acceleration is a change in the speed or a change in the vector. The change in the vector, like the direction you're traveling. So if you're going in the car, you turn, you feel that because you're change the vector. So what he was talking about, PhD Tony, was the Earth is curving. So what you feel is that you don't even feel it because the force you experience is too small for your body to be able to sense it. So it's within the air tolerances of your body. We sort of evolved to not detect this minuscule thing. But there was an interesting thing about dogs I saw recently, that when they spin around, typically most of the time, they spin around so their head is facing north before they poop or pee. Did you know that? Yeah. Like 60% of the time or whatever. 60-70% of the time they face north.
Okay.
It's more than random, right? So there's something to them. They have some type of compass built in where they can detect north. So if you're the same thing, so the change in the rotation is the same. So you have less distance you're traveling at the North Pole than you do at the equator, but the amount of force you experience is going to be the same. Yeah, because it may be faster, like covering like more degree. No, it's not faster. Like the distance is less per hour, but anyways, it works out to the same.
The point overall is that the effect on our bodies is so unbelievably minuscule that we cannot feel it. Even in your scenario of a blind person with heightened senses or whatever, we cannot feel it. It's not within our body's capability to feel it.
With that, I want to end the stream. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. There should be another debate coming up in 2 days. I'll be doing a pre-show and after show for that one. This one, I just saw it come live. No one told me a modern day debate didn't schedule it, so I would have been more prepared. But I was prepared, actually, but we didn't cover the whole thing. But
what's the debate topic in 2 days? Do you know?
Yeah, let me look. I think it's
is Mormonism true or something?
Yeah, it's Kyle Adams.
Okay. No.
Kyle Adams.
Okay.
Oh goodness.
It's fine. Is Joseph Smith a true prophet on the night?
Oh, it's my favorite topic.
Tomorrow. Right,
the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith, my favorite topic.
Well, if you can prove Joseph Smith's an idiot, then you can prove Mormonism obviously isn't true, right? So,
well, no, that doesn't prove.
What does being a prophet mean?
He's going to say it's somebody who professes things, who says things are true, and because this is his argument. I am not joking. And since he professed things are true, he is a true prophet, even if the claims aren't true. So it's an equivocation fallacy.
In that case, so are you, Ozian, for saying that.
Hey,
I am a prophet.
You are a true prophet for saying to me that he's a true prophet.
Look, there's the Book of Abraham. There's the Pearls of Great Price. There's Doctrine and Covenants. There's a whole corpus of powerful literature that has been revealed by the prophet. Okay, so you can't be hating on it. All right,
that's not going to be his argument.
I wonder if he's actually going to talk about like the LDS and the Mormon stuff. Is he going to talk about celestial, terrestrial?
It's Karnak, right? The magician Karnak. Magician Karnak. I predict that Kyle Adams is going to equivocate the definition of prophecy with something else and then claim Joseph Smith is that thing. And the entire debate's going to be a pedantic definition debate.
In that case, if we're doing predictions, one of the things I saw recently, which I thought was quite fun, was somebody claiming that Mormonism has better evidence for being true than Christianity.
How's that even possible? How's that even possible?
Because there's eyewitness testimony, which is documented and signed by the people themselves with the name at the top of the page. And there's more of them than just the disciples or the Gospels. I mean, it was a wonderful little set of arguments. Like they compared what do you have for Christianity, and then went, well, Mormon has all of that. Plus, it's you know what I mean.
It's compounding. It's a compounding element, so it can't be more parsimonious because you're compounding extra claims.
That's what you'd think, wouldn't you? But then the level of the evidence or the type of the evidence is better. That's what they're saying, right? So there's instead of having, there are no eyewitnesses to Jesus, right? However, there are at least 5 eyewitnesses that testified in writing to, seeing Joseph Smith,
the golden tablets,
seeing the tablets or the plates or whatever they are. Yeah, you know what I mean. So
awesome.
there's just like stuff like that, right?
I wonder, does he actually talk about like Mormon theology in his debates? I've seen it like one of them, but I didn't really. When I was watching, I didn't notice him actually talking about the theology.
No.
Never seen a Mormon debate. I have to be honest.
Well, I think it's a hard thing because you first have to explain what Mormon theology is and make it really simple. You have to that's a problem when you're debating a certain for example, the person who was debating Ahmadiyya theology didn't actually really go deep into explaining what Ahmadiyya theology is, and you kind of have to if you're going to defend an Ahmadiyya position. You got to explain what Ahmadiyya is. You can't just show a picture of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and expect. Like when I was debating, I said, look, I have a very limited amount of time, but I got to explain this thing that nobody really knows anything about and try to educate the audience on it. And I think a lot of folks who are debating don't actually do that, and that creates problems. You assume you can't assume from your audience information on your, if you have a fringe perspective.
Well, he was just arguing that the crucifixion didn't lead to Jesus's death. But this is what he's going to do. He says, a prophet is a person regarded as an inspired teacher.
Yeah, sure.
This will be the debate.
Okay.
I don't think it's very hard. That's not a hard thing to debate. You could, I could easily debate that, Joseph Smith is a Mormon prophet. It's not a hard debate. With that definition, it's easy.
Zane. A prophet is somebody with a prophecy. Zane. Zane. You naive little child, Zane. Have you ever debated Kyle Adams? I have. a few times.
What did you debate with him?
Conspiracy theories, flurf, atheism. I think 3 times I debated him. Did I? Maybe twice. I don't know. But we left on a bad foot because he said I had to deny Karl Popper to debate him. Like, why? In the domain of science, this is in the philosophy of science, we don't claim things are proven. Like, why is that a problem? Like, that's not a problem for me. Like, you're using a different definition of proof than we are using in the domain of science. You're equivocating this definition of proven with this definition of proven. And you know you are because you're dishonest, Kyle Adams. I hope you're watching this. Quit tagging me in your videos. I'm not going to respond. Okay, I just did.
Speaking of which, I just want to shout out to my inspired teacher that taught me calculus, who is a true prophet, Mr. Hashmi. Thank you very much. And he would say, exactly reiterate what you said, mathematical proof is different from the colloquial use of proof in science. And those two things should not be equivocated upon, just for the purity of maths.
I don't know what I did wrong, Robin, that you need to be sorry for, but thank you. Anyways, I'm going to end the stream, guys. Thank you so much. I wanted to go 90 minutes. We've gone 2 hours. But thank you very much for everybody coming. As the numbers tick up by like 10 viewers or something like that. But thank you very much for coming to the stream. Maybe I'll do another show to cover this debate, because since I went through all the trouble to make a video during the debate. But that's okay. I like the show anyways. Until next time, guys, which will be in 2 days. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.